On Christmas Eve, magnate Ethan Hayes brought his daughter to witness the holiday splendor of Central Park. A girl he'd never seen before came near, uttering the words, "She's just like me." As he looked at the young girl's features, Ethan froze, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were confirming. The vibrant wash of holiday lights reflecting in Olivia's blue eyes created a maelstrom of emotions that Ethan Hayes could not decipher. His 5-year-old daughter, a perfect echo of her mother, Emily, stood transfixed before the FAO Schwartz window, her small finger tracing the shape of a classic porcelain doll on the glass. Ethan adjusted the cashmere scarf around his daughter's neck, his touch lingering, feeling detached and almost robotic. Olivia offered no reaction. The park pulsed with a current of festive energy around them. Families laughed. Children darted after imaginary reindeer. Couples walked with linked hands. Yet Ethan and Olivia were a silent island in this ocean of holiday joy. A street cart selling hot pretzels went by, the savory warm scent enveloping them. And for a beat, Ethan was pulled back to another Christmas 6 years ago, the gleaming, sterile corridor of Massachusetts General Hospital, the steady beep of monitors, a rhythmic counterpoint to the silence. Emily, luminous even in her fatigue, lovingly stroked her swollen belly. "They're dancing, Ethan," she had whispered, a brilliant smile on her face. Our little ballerinas, Dr. Evans, had entered, his face a carefully constructed mask of professional calm. "It's time, Mrs. Hayes." The hours that followed were a haze of nervous energy and desperate hope. The sound of a first cry sliced through the tension, followed by an unnerving quiet. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. It's a healthy girl. One girl, singular. Dr." Evans's expression contorted into a well-practiced look of sorrow. "I'm sorry to inform you the second baby did not survive." Ethan's reality fractured Emily's cry, a terrible fusion of elation and devastating loss filled the room. Daddy Olivia's voice yanked him back to the present. She was pointing at the brightly lit carousel in the heart of the park. Ethan nodded, a ghost of a gesture, steering her through the throng in a storefront's reflection. He saw his own image, dark hair now threaded with silver, deep-set shadows beneath his eyes. The phantom of the man he once was, the peal of another child's laughter, made him turn sharply. For a second, he thought he saw. No, impossible. Olivia climbed onto a painted wooden horse, her small hands clutching the brass pole. Ethan stood nearby, watching her spin in circles with every revolution. A memory flashed Emily, cradling Olivia, humming a lullaby their first Christmas with Emily, obsessively setting up the twins' nursery, their final Christmas. Emily gazing at the tree with hollow eyes, whispering a name Ethan wouldn't allow himself to hear. The carousel's bright music was a cruel soundtrack to the next memory. "Mr. Parker, this is Central Hospital calling." The world had stopped for Ethan. Emily had gone out for a walk. She was taking too long. "There's been an accident." The words that followed were lost in a roaring static overdose. Accidental, the official report would state, but in his soul, Ethan knew better. The funeral was on a day much like this, with snow dusting the ground. Olivia, just 3 years old, didn't understand why Mommy was sleeping in a box. Ethan had no words for her. The ride slowed to a stop. Olivia dismounted, her eyes searching for his approval. Ethan managed a smile, extending a hand that felt disconnected from his body. She paused before taking it. They moved in silence, past carolers, street performers, and sidewalk Santas. The city was alight with celebration, wholly unaware of the void that was consuming them. Ethan checked his Rolex, almost time for the reservation at Per Se, followed by the ritual of opening gifts at the mansion. Everything scheduled, a cold business dealing. Olivia stopped dead, her gaze fixed on something past the glittering lights. Ethan followed her line of sight, his breath hitching in the warped reflection of a massive holiday ornament. For a split second, it looked like there were two Olivias. Ethan blinked and the mirage was gone, but Olivia stood rooted to the spot, as if expecting something or someone. The cathedral bells on the great tree told the hour it was time to leave, but Olivia didn't budge 5 more minutes. Ethan heard his own voice say, the words surprising him. Olivia nodded, a tiny smile, the first he'd seen all night, touching her lips as he watched his daughter move toward the giant tree. Ethan felt a flicker of something he hadn't known in years. Hope the lights twinkled like a galaxy brought to Earth, casting moving shadows on the faces of the crowd. Ethan loosened his silk tie, a sudden constriction in his chest. The last time he'd felt this profound unease was when Emily insisted on digging through hospital records weeks before she died. The park held its secrets beneath layers of light and sound, somewhere between the shadows and the reflections. The past was lying in wait. Olivia continued on, each step drawing her closer to a fate Ethan could not yet fathom. The snow began to fall in earnest, blanketing the park in a layer of white, as if the universe were wiping the slate clean, offering them all a new beginning. The carousel spun in a blur of color and children's shouts. Olivia lingered at the edge, her small fingers gripping the safety rail. Ethan watched from afar, torn between the impulse to shield her and the yearning to see her truly smile again. A snowflake landed on Olivia's nose and melted instantly. She blinked, and for a fleeting moment, Ethan saw the carefree child she might have been. Then it happened. A girl in a faded red coat ran past, nearly bumping into Olivia. Both girls turned at the same instant, like reflections in a looking-glass. The world seemed to hold its breath, identical cascades of blonde hair, the same piercing blue eyes, freckles dusting their noses in the exact same pattern. Even the slight frown of confusion they shared was a perfect match. Ethan felt the ground fall away from under him. His mind screamed that it was impossible, but his eyes could not deny the truth standing before him. The girls stared, transfixed, as if worried the other might disappear if they moved. The festive throng around them carried on its merry way. Oblivious to the miracle unfolding in their midst, Olivia was the first to speak. Her voice, normally so quiet, was a whisper of pure wonder. "She's just like me." The other girl, Lily, though Ethan did not know her name yet, reached out a tentative hand toward Olivia, as if to confirm she was real. Their fingers were about to touch when a coarse voice broke the spell. "Lily, come here immediately." An elderly woman appeared from the crowd, her hurried pace at odds with the cane she leaned on, dressed in modest but neat clothing. She froze when she saw Ethan. A flash of recognition crossed her features before being swiftly replaced by something akin to panic. Ethan took a step forward, 1,000 questions erupting in his mind, but before he could speak, the woman, Evelyn, grabbed Lily's arm. "Come on, dear. It's getting late." Lily resisted, her eyes still locked on Olivia. "But Grandma, look. I know, dear. I know." Evelyn's voice had a slight tremor. "But we cannot stay. Let's go." Ethan finally found his voice. "Wait, please. I need." But Evelyn was already moving. Pulling a reluctant Lily by the hand, the crowd seemed to absorb them. Leaving Ethan and Olivia frozen on the spot, Olivia tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, why did she look like me? Is it Christmas magic?" Ethan couldn't form a response, his thoughts spinning faster than the carousel, trying to make sense of the impossible. Emily had been right. She had been right all along. Without a second thought, Ethan scooped Olivia into his arms and plunged into the sea of people. The scent of pine and roasted nuts gave way to the smell of damp coats and desperation as he pushed through happy families. His eyes scanning frantically for the faded red coat, flashes of Lily appeared and disappeared like a mirage. A reflection in an ornament, a shadow cast by the twinkling lights. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Drowning out the sound of the Christmas bells, Olivia clung to his neck, confused but strangely serene. "Daddy? Where are we going? We need to find that girl's sweetheart." Ethan barely recognized his own voice, raw and desperate. They rounded a corner, and there they were. Evelyn was trying to hustle Lily into a yellow cab, but the girl was pulling back, looking over her shoulder as if she sensed they were being followed. "Wait," Ethan shouted, closing the last few yards at a run. Evelyn turned, stark fear in her eyes for a moment. Ethan saw past the facade of a concerned grandmother. He saw guilt there, and deep-seated secrets. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Please don't make this harder than it already is." Ethan set Olivia down, and the two girls immediately moved toward each other like magnets. He knelt, bringing himself to Evelyn's eye level. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice a tightly controlled demand. "And who is she really?" Evelyn looked from the girls to Ethan, tears glistening in her tired eyes. "She is Lily, my granddaughter." Ethan felt the world tilt. How is this possible? They told us. I know what they told you." Evelyn cut in, her voice suddenly firm, "And I know why they said it, but not here. Not now. These girls have been apart for too long already." As if to prove her point, Olivia and Lily were now standing hand in hand, examining each other with a child's pure fascination. They were living mirrors, reflecting not just looks, but gestures and expressions. Ethan looked at Evelyn, then at the girls, then back to the old woman. His executive mind demanded immediate answers, wanted to assign blame, to understand the logistics, but his father's heart, "Come with us," he said finally. "To the mansion, spend Christmas with us. Then we'll talk." Evelyn hesitated, decades of secrets weighing on her. But then Lily laughed, a sound identical to Olivia's, and the choice was made all right. She agreed. "But know this, Mr. Parker, this story has many layers, and not all of them are pretty." Ethan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words as he helped Evelyn into the limousine he'd summoned. He watched the girls. Olivia and Lily were already chattering away, as if they'd known one another for their entire lives. In a way, Ethan thought, perhaps they had. As the car glided through the brilliantly lit streets, Ethan felt a cocktail of emotions he couldn't name: joy at this impossible reunion, rage at the separation, fear of what he would uncover, and against all odds, hope. He looked up at the sky through the sunroof. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in a pure white mantle, as if the universe were wiping the slate clean, granting them all a second-chance Christmas. Ethan realized was about to bring more than presents this year. It would bring truths long buried, and perhaps a new beginning for them all. The city lights streaked by in colorful blurs, reflecting on the identical faces of the girls Olivia and Lily, separated by circumstance, now joined by fate. And between them, Evelyn, a reluctant keeper of secrets on the verge of being told. Ethan pressed the intercom button. "Home," he instructed the driver, and for the first time in years, the word home did not ring hollow. The Fifth Avenue mansion, usually so quiet, now rang with the sound of children's laughter. Ethan watched from the slightly ajar doorway of Olivia's room as the two girls played, as if a lifetime of separation had never happened. Lily held a porcelain doll with a sense of awe, while Olivia carefully stacked colored blocks, creating a fantastical castle. Evelyn had retreated to the guest suite, citing exhaustion, but Ethan knew it was a stalling tactic. She was buying time, marshaling her thoughts, perhaps even plotting her escape. He wouldn't let her. Not again. With heavy steps, Ethan made his way to his study, the vast mahogany desk, usually buried under contracts and financial reports, now held a single dusty box. Emily read the elegant handwriting on the label. He hesitated before lifting the lid. The scent of lavender, Emily's signature perfume, still clung to the contents. Ethan pulled out the first file, marked Massachusetts General Hospital, birth records. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. There it was, in stark black and white: Olivia and Lily Hayes, born December 15th, twin birth, but a handwritten notation caught his eye. Neonatal death, Lily Hayes, 0347. Ethan frowned. Why would a death be noted by hand on an official document, and why had he never questioned it? He dug deeper into the box, finding letters, receipts, and Emily's journals. One entry in particular made his chest tighten. "I dreamed of them again. 2 girls running in the garden. Ethan says my mind is playing tricks on me, but I know I feel it. Lily is alive somewhere. Why does no one believe me?" The note was dated just a week before Emily's death. Ethan swallowed hard, pushing the painful memory away. He kept searching, finding invoices from private investigators Emily had secretly hired. All had reached dead ends, all concluding she was suffering from delusion. But what if a memory surfaced? Emily, 7 months pregnant, stroking her belly while talking to the babies. "Olivia will be the artist," she'd said with a smile. I feel her move whenever I play the piano, and Lily, oh, she'll be our little adventurer. She's always so restless. Especially at night, Ethan had laughed then, charmed by how Emily had already assigned them personalities now. The memory was a source of profound doubt. How could he have dismissed her intuition? He returned his focus to the hospital paperwork. Something didn't add up. The signatures on key documents seemed subtly wrong. Years in business had made him an expert in spotting forgeries. He picked up the phone and dialed his trusted private investigator. "Frank, it's James Parker. I need everything you can find about the day my daughters were born at St. Mary's Hospital. And I want a full investigation into suspicious adoptions over the last 10 years, urgent." After hanging up, he felt adrenaline surge through his system. He was close to something. He could feel it. Another memory fragment, Emily in her 32nd week, waking him in the middle of the night. Ethan, wake up." She'd had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. They're communicating what he'd mumbled. Half asleep the babies, one kicks and the other responds. It's like they're talking to each other. Oh, Ethan, it's magical he had held her. Kissing her forehead, amazed by the connection Emily felt with their unborn children now, watching Olivia and Lily playing in the next room, Ethan wondered if that connection had ever truly been severed, if somehow the girls had always been aware of each other. He went back to the documents, more determined than ever. Every paper, every note could be the key that unlocked the entire conspiracy. Hours slipped by. The pile of evidence grew. Patterns started to take shape. Altered dates, recurring names, inexplicable fund transfers to unknown accounts. It was nearly dawn when Ethan found something that sent a chill down his spine. A photograph tucked away amongst medical charts in it. A nurse he didn't recognize stood beside a well-dressed, elegant couple, turning the photo over. An inscription. "Thank you for everything, Isabel. You gave us the greatest gift." Ethan felt a wave of nausea. What role had Evelyn really played in all of this? Another memory assaulted him. This one from the day of the birth. Emily, pale and exhausted, begging to see both babies. The nurse with a gentle voice. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Parker, only..." Emma survived. It's better not to see the other body to preserve good memories at the time, Ethan had agreed, thinking it was for the best now. He understood the monumental error he had made. How many other families had endured the same thing? The sound of small footsteps broke his concentration. Olivia and Lily stood at the study door, hand in hand, looking at him with curiosity. "Daddy," Olivia said, her voice soft with sleep. "Why are you crying?" Ethan hadn't realized tears were streaming down his face. He wiped them away quickly, forcing a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart, just memories." Lily stepped forward, her eyes so like Olivia's, so like Emily's, shining with a wisdom that belied her years. "Are you thinking about our mommy?" she asked quietly. Ethan felt his heart crack and mend itself in the same instant. "Yes, Lily, I'm thinking about your mommy." He pulled both girls into a fierce embrace, feeling the weight of years of secrets and lies begin to dissolve in that single moment with his daughters in his arms. Ethan made a silent vow to Emily. "I will find out the truth. My love for you, for them, for all the families that were torn apart, I swear." The sun began to rise, casting its first rays through the study window. A new day, a new beginning, and with it, a father's unyielding determination to find justice. Ethan looked at the girls, then at Evelyn's photograph. The pieces of the puzzle were finally clicking into place, forming a picture he dreaded but had to see girls. He said softly, "How about we have breakfast together? We have a lot to talk about." Olivia and Lily nodded, their identical smiles lighting up the room as he led them toward the kitchen. Ethan knew the day ahead would bring revelations that would change their lives forever. Ethan Hayes' study had been transformed into a labyrinth of documents and theories. Mind maps sprawled across the walls, with red lines connecting names, dates, and locations. At the heart of it all was a photograph of Massachusetts General Hospital, its grand white pillars now appearing to conceal sinister shadows. Ethan, with dark circles under his eyes and a stubbled jaw, pored over hospital records beside him. Frank typed furiously on a laptop. "What do we have in Frank?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Frank swiveled the laptop screen. "Mr. Parker, I found something. Look at these birth records." Ethan leaned in, his eyes flying across the screen. Altered birth dates, inconsistent times, signatures that didn't match the hospital's own logs. It was a subtle but undeniable pattern. "How many cases like this?" Ethan asked, a knot forming in his gut. "Just one," Frank replied, his voice heavy. "Your daughter's case." Ethan felt the weight of that revelation. It wasn't a widespread operation, but something specific, targeted. "But why about Charlotte's death record?" Frank continued, pulling up another file. "There are serious discrepancies. The time of death listed doesn't match the neonatal ward's activity logs." Ethan grabbed the document, his eyes locked on the time, 03:47. "What does that mean?" "Frank, it means, Mr. Parker, that according to the logs, there was no baby in critical condition. At that hour, in fact, there were no recorded deaths that night." Ethan's world seemed to tilt. The certainty of Lily's death, for years a gaping wound, now morphed into agonizing doubt, and with that doubt came a sliver of hope. "Frank, I need you to check something else," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "Look into adoption or BAB transfers." In the weeks following my daughter's birth, as Frank got to work, Ethan rose and walked to the window outside. Olivia and Lily were playing in the garden, their laughter carrying across the manicured lawn. The sight filled him with a fierce resolve. "Mr. Parker," Frank's voice brought him back. "I found something 2 weeks after your daughter's birth. There was a rushed adoption, a girl with the same birth date." Ethan felt his heart hammer against his ribs. The adoptive parent's name's Frank. Hesitated. That's the strange part. The names that were redacted, all documents related to this. Adoptions seemed to have been sanitized. Ethan frowned. Someone had taken great pains to hide this adoption, but why and how did it connect to Lily? He returned to his desk, sifting through papers until he found what he was looking for. The staff schedule from the night of the birth. His eyes scanned the list until they stopped on a single name. Evelyn Reed, head nurse, the same Evelyn who was now in his house, caring for Lily. The pieces were slotting together, forming a picture he dreaded but had to face. "Frank, I need everything on Isabel Thorne, work history, finances, connections, everything." While the investigator dug in, Ethan allowed himself a moment's pause, his eyes falling on a photo of Emily on his desk. She was smiling, radiant in her late pregnancy. A memory struck him. Emily, days after the birth, insisting she'd heard 2 distinct cries that night. "Ethan and I know what I heard 2 babies crying at the time." He'd chalked it up to trauma and medication now. Guilt flooded him. How could he have ever doubted her? "Mr. Parker," Frank's voice cut through his thoughts. "About Isabel Thorne, she retired abruptly 2 weeks after your daughter's birth. And there's something else. She received a substantial amount of money in her account." At the same time, Ethan's blood ran cold. "How much?" $200. 000, source untraceable. The final piece of the puzzle slammed into place. Ethan stood abruptly, his mind racing with the implications. "Frank, keep investigating. I want everything on that suspicious adoption and find any possible link between Isabel and those adoptive parents." Leaving his office, Ethan paused in the hallway, watching Olivia and Lily through the window. They were identical in every gesture, every expression. How had he not seen it before he went downstairs, determined to confront Evelyn? But when he reached the living room, it was empty. A note on the coffee table made his heart stop. "Mr. Parker, I know you're close to the truth. Please understand that my actions, as questionable as they seem, were driven by desperation, and believe it or not, love. When you're ready to hear the whole story, meet me where it all began." Isabel. Ethan crumpled the note, rage and confusion warring within him. She had run, taking the answers he so desperately needed. He went back to the garden, watching his daughters, Olivia and Lily, separated by a cruel fate, reunited by chance. Or was it something more? "Girls," he called, his voice steadier than he felt. "Come here, we have to take a trip," guiding them inside. Ethan knew he was about to unearth truths long buried. Massachusetts General Hospital held the secrets, and it was time to face them in the car. On the way to the hospital, Ethan looked in the rearview mirror. Olivia and Lily were dozing in the back, their heads touching, their hands clasped even in sleep. The sight hardened his resolve. The hospital loomed ahead, imposing and foreboding. Ethan parked, his heart pounding. The answers he sought were hidden within those sterile corridors and dusty archives carrying the sleeping girls. One in each arm, Ethan walked toward the entrance. Each step brought him closer to the truth, to redemption, and perhaps, finally, to the peace Emily had been searching for. The automatic doors hissed open, as if the hospital itself were ready to yield its secrets. Ethan Hayes entered, carrying his daughters and the weight of 5 years of lies. It was time to learn the truth, no matter the cost. The attic of the Fifth Avenue mansion was steeped in shadows, illuminated only by the weak glow of a bare bulb. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years and memories stored away here. Boxes piled high held fragments of a life cut short, each a silent testament to what was lost. His hands trembled as he opened a box marked simply with a single word. Emily, the scent of lavender, so uniquely her, enveloped him like a phantom embrace on top of a stack of papers. A brown leather-bound journal caught his eye. Emily's diary. Ethan paused, feeling like an intruder about to trespass on his late wife's most private world, but the need for answers was stronger than any hesitation. He carefully opened it to the first page. March 12th. Today I felt them both move for the first time. It's as if they're dancing inside me. Olivia always first, and Lily following right after I already loved them so much. It hurts. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. The sheer joy in those words was a painful contrast to what followed. He flipped through the pages, landing on the days after the birth. December 18th. Something's wrong. They say Lily didn't survive, but I feel her. It's as if part of me knows she's alive somewhere. Ethan thinks it's the depression talking, but what if it's not? Ethan felt a sharp pang of guilt. How many times had he dismissed Emily's fears as postpartum delusion? The subsequent entries chronicled Emily's descent, her obsessive quest for answers, sleepless nights spent researching, frantic calls to the hospital. February 3rd. I found something today, a misplaced file in the hospital system. For a brief moment, I saw the name Lily Hayes listed as transferred, not deceased. When I went back to check, the file was gone. Am I going crazy, or is something really wrong? Ethan felt a chill run up his spine. Emily had been so close to the truth, and no one had believed her. The next pages were a blur of hope and despair as Emily swung between moments of investigative lucidity and profound depression. April 15th. I met a nurse today. Angela. She seemed nervous when I mentioned Lily. She said something about special projects at the hospital, but refused to elaborate. I need to find out more. Ethan made a mental note to track down Angela. She could be a crucial witness. As he read deeper, Emily's writing grew more frantic, more desperate. June 7th. They're watching me. I'm sure of it. Strange cars on the street, mysterious phone calls. Ethan thinks I'm paranoid, but I know they know. I know about Lily. Ethan's heart constricted. How had he been so blind? Emily wasn't delusional. She was on the verge of uncovering something dangerous. The final entries were the hardest to read. August 20th. I found proof. Documents, photos. Everything. Lily is alive, but it's bigger than just her. There are other children, other families, a horrible project. I need to expose this, but I'm scared if something happens to me. I hope someone finds this diary and continues the fight. Ethan felt sick. The date was just 3 days before Emily's death. The last entry made his heart stop. August 23rd. They're coming. I know too much. Ethan, Olivia. Forgive me. I love you both. Lily, wherever you are, Mommy loves you. The sentence was unfinished, the pen trailing off in a shaky line. Ethan closed the diary, the weight of the world pressing down on him. Emily hadn't taken her own life in a fit of despair. She had been silenced slowly. Other pieces of the puzzle fell into place in his mind. The strange behavior of the doctors after Emily's death, their haste to have her cremated, their insistence that it was an open and shut case of suicide with trembling hands. Ethan pulled out his phone and called Frank. "I need you to investigate something for me. Emily's death that wasn't suicide. Find everything you can about August 23rd. Hospital records, security cameras, anything hanging up." Ethan looked around the attic. How many other secrets were hidden here? He began to search frantically through the other boxes, determined to find the proof Emily mentioned in her final entry. After hours of searching, as the sun began to rise, he found a folder hidden in the false bottom of an old trunk. Inside were photos, documents, medical records, everything Emily had collected with shaking hands. He spread the contents across the attic floor. There it was, in black and white evidence of the irregularities at the hospital, lists of potentially affected families, suspicious bank transfers. "Oh, Emily," Ethan murmured, tears falling freely onto the aged paper. "You found it all, and I didn't believe you." The sound of small footsteps on the attic stairs pulled him from his grief. Olivia and Lily appeared at the door, hand in hand, looking with curiosity at the scene. Daddy Olivia called, hesitantly, "Are you crying?" Ethan quickly wiped his tears, forcing a smile. "I'm okay, sweetheart," just as remembering Mommy Lily stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the scattered papers. "Are these Mommy's things?" Ethan nodded, unable to lie to them. "Yes, Lily." "Your mother?" She was an incredible woman and very, very brave. The girls came closer, sitting beside Ethan. He wrapped his arms around them, feeling the weight of responsibility now settle on his shoulders. "Girls," he said softly, "there's something I need to tell you about Mommy, about what happened, and about what we're going to do now." As the sun rose, casting golden light through the attic's small window, Ethan began to tell the story, a story of love, loss, courage, and a mother's unyielding search for the truth. Emily's words, immortalized in her diary, echoed in his mind. "If something happens to me, I hope someone finds this diary and continues the fight." Ethan looked at his daughters, reunited after years of separation, and made a silent promise to Emily. "I will continue your fight. My love for you, for them, and for all the families who may have been separated, your voice will be heard. I promise the day was just beginning, but for Ethan Hayes, a new journey, a mission, was taking shape, a journey to honor Emily's legacy and bring the truth she so bravely sought into the light, with Emily's diary in one hand and his daughter's hands in the other. Ethan stood up. It was time to face the secrets of Massachusetts General Hospital, to confront Evelyn, and to finally uncover the whole truth about his daughter's birth. The attic, once a vault of painful memories, had now become the starting point of a quest for justice. Ethan knew the road would be difficult, but with Emily's voice guiding him through her diary and the love of Olivia and Lily strengthening him, he was ready for any challenge. The truth, buried for so long, was about to be unearthed, and with it the hope of healing, not just for the Hayes family, but for any others whose lives had been shattered by the secrets hidden within the corridors of Massachusetts General Hospital. The small apartment on the city's outskirts was a world away from the Fifth Avenue mansion. Peeling paint, worn furniture, but a warmth that emanated from every corner. Lily sat at the kitchen table, her legs dangling far from the floor, watching her adoptive mother, Linda. "Prepare dinner," Mommy Lily called, her voice as gentle as always. "Can I help?" Linda smiled, fatigue clear in her eyes, but her love shining through. "Of course, my love. How about setting the cutlery on the table?" Lily hopped down from her chair, happy for the task, as she carefully placed the forks and knives. Her eyes drifted to a photo on the wall. Her, Linda, and Michael, her adoptive father. In happier times, the front door creaked open, and Michael entered, his shoulders slumped, his face etched with worry. "Any news, dear?" Linda asked, a sliver of hope in her voice. Michael shook his head, slumping into a chair. "Nothing yet. It seems no one is hiring." Lily approached timidly, wrapping her arms around her father's legs. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'm sure you'll find something soon." Michael forced a smile, stroking his daughter's golden hair. "Thank you, Princess." Dinner was simple vegetable soup and bread. Lily noticed how her mother served herself a smaller portion, ensuring that she and Michael had enough after dinner. While Lily pretended to play with her mended doll, She overheard her parents' worried whispers from the kitchen. "The rent is later, Marie, and the bills keep coming. I know Robert maybe, and maybe I can pick up another shift at the hospital. You already work too much. You barely see Charlotte." The girl hugged her doll tighter, feeling the weight of her parents' worries. Even at 5, she understood that things weren't easy. The days dragged on, and the atmosphere in the small apartment grew heavier. Michael left each morning to look for work, returning more disheartened each time Linda worked double shifts at the hospital, coming home exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. One night, Lily was awakened by the sound of coughing. She crept from her room and found Linda in the kitchen, pressing a handkerchief to her mouth. "Mommy," she called out. Frightened, Linda quickly hid the blood-stained cloth. "It's nothing, sweetheart, go back to bed," but it wasn't nothing in the following days. Linda's cough grew worse. Michael insisted she see a doctor, but she resisted. Worried about the cost, it happened on a rainy morning. Lily woke to the sound of sirens running to the living room. She saw paramedics carrying her mother out on a stretcher. "Mommy," she cried, trying to reach her. Michael held her back, tears in his eyes. "She'll be fine, a princess, she'll be fine." But she wasn't. 3 days later, Linda passed away, leaving a cavernous hole in Lily's heart and a mountain of medical debt for Michael. The funeral was simple. Lily, wearing her best dress, now a size too small, held her father's hand as the coffin was lowered into the earth. The few people there offered hollow condolences and pitying glances. Life after Linda's death became a daily struggle. Michael, consumed by grief and financial despair, found solace in a bottle. Lily, at 6 years old, found herself taking on responsibilities far beyond her years. She learned to make simple sandwiches for dinner, to wash her own clothes even though she could barely reach the sink, and to comfort her father on nights when he cried, clutching a photo of Linda. The bills mounted, and the apartment, once cozy, now felt cold and empty. Lily heard Michael's heated arguments with the landlord, the threats of eviction one night, pretending to be asleep. She heard Michael on the phone. "Please, just 1 more week. I promise I'll get the money. We can't end up on the street. I have a little girl." Lily hugged her doll tighter, silent tears streaming down her face. She wished desperately that her mother was there to make everything right again. The days crawled by. Michael found odd jobs here and there, but the money was never enough. Lily started skipping meals, claiming she wasn't hungry so her father could eat more. It was on a particularly bleak afternoon that a neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn, knocked on the door. Lily opened it to find the elderly woman holding a covered dish. "Hello, dear." Evelyn smiled kindly. "I thought you and your dad might enjoy some stew." The delicious aroma made Lily's stomach rumble. "Thank you, Mrs. Isabel," she said, trying to be polite as her mother had taught her. Evelyn looked past the girl, taking in the state of the apartment, concern filling her eyes. "Where is your father, Charlotte?" The girl hesitated. He went out looking for work." Evelyn nodded, understanding more than Lily knew well. "How about you? Come with me for a while. We can eat together, and maybe you can help me organize some things." Lily looked back at the empty, sad apartment, then at Evelyn's kind face. Slowly, she nodded. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn became a constant presence in Lily's life. She brought meals, helped with chores, and most importantly, offered a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on Michael, lost in his own grief and shame. Barely noticed the changes. He spent more and more time away from home, looking for work, returning late at night smelling of cheap liquor on a particularly cold night. Everything came to a head. Lily woke to the sound of shattering glass. Running to the living room, she found Michael on the floor, a broken bottle beside him. "Daddy!" she cried, rushing to his side. Michael looked up at her, his eyes filled with alcohol and tears. "I'm sorry, Charlotte. I'm so sorry that I failed you and your mother." Lily hugged him, the smell of liquor and despair clinging to him. "It's okay, Daddy. It will be okay." But she knew it wasn't, and it wouldn't be the next morning. While Michael was still asleep, Lily packed her school backpack with a few items of clothing and her precious doll with tears in her eyes. She left a simple note. "Daddy, I love you, but you need to take care of yourself. I'll be fine, I promise." With one last look at the apartment that had once been a happy home, Lily left. Closing the door softly behind her, she knew exactly where she was going. Knocking on Evelyn's door, Lily found the elderly woman already awake, as if she had been waiting. "I was wondering when you'd come." Dear Evelyn said softly. Opening her arms, Lily ran into the embrace, finally letting the tears flow freely as Evelyn comforted her. The girl felt for the first time in a long while that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. What Lily didn't know was that this was only the beginning of a journey that would lead her back to her true origins, to a sister she never knew existed, and to a father who had never stopped searching for her. The late afternoon sun filtered through the curtains of the Fifth Avenue mansion's living room, creating dancing patterns on the Persian rug where Olivia and Lily played. The two girls, identical in appearance but with such different histories, were absorbed in a puzzled look. Lily Olivia exclaimed, fitting a piece into place. "I found the cat's nose." Lily laughed, the sound a perfect echo of Olivia's, making it impossible to distinguish between them. "Great, now we just need the tail." Ethan observed from the doorway, a cup of coffee forgotten in his hand. Every synchronized movement, every shared laugh, every knowing glance between the girls was living proof of their connection, a bond that transcended mere physical similarity. They look like they were born to be together. Don't they? Evelyn's voice startled him. The older woman stood beside him, her eyes on the girls, a mixture of love and apprehension in her gaze. Ethan nodded slowly. It's as if they're making up for lost time. The girls were now humming a lullaby, their voices blending in perfect harmony. Ethan frowned. Isabel. How does Charlotte know that song? Sarah used to sing it to Emma. Every night. Evelyn paled slightly. Oh, it must be a coincidence. It must be you know how popular lullabies can be. But Ethan saw the tremor in her voice. The way her eyes darted away from his. Something was not right. Later that day, outside in the sprawling gardens, the similarities became even more pronounced. They ran, jumped, and played as if they had spent their entire lives in sync, anticipating each other's moves with an uncanny precision. Grandma Isabel Lily called, running toward the older woman. Look what Emma taught me. The two girls performed a series of dance steps in perfect mirrored motion. Evelyn applauded, but Ethan noticed the slight shake in her hands. Amazing how well they get along. Isn't it, Isabel? Ethan commented, his voice casual, but his eyes sharp. Evelyn forced a smile. Yes, they're very alike, almost as if they were sisters. Ethan pressed on, watching Evelyn's reaction intently. Well, children have a way of bonding quickly, don't they? Ethan decided to change his approach. You know, Isabel, I've been doing some research at St. Mary's Hospital. I've found some inconsistencies in the records from the night the girls were born. Evelyn's face drained of all color. Oh, what kind of inconsistencies altered records times that don't match? Ethan paused, his gaze fixed on Evelyn, a head nurse who retired abruptly. Right after the girl's birth, Evelyn took a step back as if she'd been struck. Mr. Parker? I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything, Isabel. Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. I'm seeking the truth for Emma, for Charlotte, and for Sarah. The mention of Emily's name hit Evelyn like a physical blow. She steadied herself on a nearby bench, her breathing shallow. Ethan, she began, her voice trembling. There are things you don't understand, things that, but before she could finish, the sound of shattering glass echoed from the house, followed by the girls' frightened cries. Ethan and Evelyn ran inside to find Olivia and Lily standing in the middle of the living room, surrounded by shards of glass. A picture frame lay on the floor, Emily's smiling face staring up from the wreckage. Sorry, Daddy? Olivia whimpered. We didn't mean to knock it over, but Ethan barely heard her. His eyes were on Lily, who had knelt to pick up the photograph. The girl looked at Emily's image with an expression of both recognition and confusion. I dreamed about. Her Lily whispered, her fingers tracing the outline of Emily's face in the photo. She was singing to me. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Ethan looked at Evelyn, who looked as if she were about to faint. Charlotte, Ethan knelt beside the girl, his heart pounding. "Have you seen this woman before?" Lily frowned, concentrating. "No, but I feel like I know her. It's strange, isn't it?" A wave of emotions crashed over Ethan: anger, confusion, hope, fear. He stood, facing Evelyn. "I think it's time we had a serious conversation." "Isabel," he said, his voice low and controlled, "no more secrets, no more half-truths." Evelyn seemed to be waging an internal war, her eyes darting from Ethan to the girls, as if weighing the risks very well. She finally said, her voice defeated, "But not here, not in front of them." Ethan nodded. "Emma, Charlotte, why don't you two go play in the garden for a while?" The girls obeyed, casting curious glances at the adults as they left. Once they were alone, the tension in the room was palpable. Ethan gestured toward the sofa, and Evelyn sat as if the weight of the world were on her shoulders. "Start at the beginning," Ethan said, sitting opposite her, "and don't leave anything out." Evelyn took a deep breath, tears welling in her eyes. "James, you must understand what I did. I did out of love. Desperate, misguided love, but love all the same." Ethan felt his chest tighten, whatever the truth was. "He knew it would change everything 5 years ago," Evelyn began, her voice trembling. "I was head nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. That's where I met Sarah and where I made the biggest mistake of my life." As Evelyn spoke, Ethan felt the world he knew begin to crumble. Each word was a revelation, each confession another piece of the puzzle finally falling into place. Outside, Olivia and Lily played, oblivious to the storm brewing inside the house. Their laughter, so perfectly matched, echoed through the garden, a constant reminder of the unbreakable bond that united them. The truth, buried for so long, was finally coming to the surface, and with it, the promise of changes that would affect not just the Hayes family, but everyone involved. Ethan Hayes' study, once a sanctuary of business and finance, had become a war room worthy of a spy thriller. Whiteboards covered the walls, filled with names, dates, and connections scribbled in red ink at the center of it all. A photo of Massachusetts General Hospital, its imposing white columns now seeming to hide sinister secrets. Ethan, with deep circles under his eyes and an unkempt beard, studied a stack of hospital records at his side. Frank typed furiously on a laptop. "What do we have?" Ethan asked, his voice rough with fatigue. Frank turned the screen. "Mr. Parker, I managed to access the hospital's internal records. It's disturbing." Ethan leaned closer, his eyes scanning the information. Altered birth dates, forged medical records, even fake death certificates, but what drew his attention most were the glaring inconsistencies in Olivia and Lily's records. "Look at this." Frank pointed to a specific entry. Emma's birth time was recorded at 11:45 ppm, but Charlotte's, it was erased and rewritten several times, as if someone couldn't decide whether she should exist or not. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. And what about Charlotte's death record? Frank opened another file. Here's where it gets interesting. The death certificate was signed by Dr. Blackwell at 0347, but according to system logs, Dr. Blackwell wasn't at the hospital at that time. Then who signed it? Ethan asked, adrenaline surging through his veins. "That's the point," Frank answered quietly. "The digital signature was made using a nurse's credentials. Isabel Thorne's." Ethan felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. Evelyn, the woman caring for Lily, was at the very center of this conspiracy. "Frank, I need you to do something," Ethan said, his voice trembling slightly. "Find all the people who worked in the maternity ward that night, nurses, doctors, even janitors. I want to speak to all of them." In the days that followed, Ethan embarked on a frantic search for the truth. He interviewed dozens of former hospital employees, each conversation raising more questions than it answered. One nurse, Angela Winters, seemed particularly on edge during her interview. "Mr. Parker," she said, her hands shaking as she clutched a coffee cup, "there are things that happened in that hospital, things that should never have happened." "What kind of things?" M. Winters, Ethan pressed, gently. Angela looked around, as if afraid of being overheard. Babies being moved in the middle of the night. Records altered wealthy families suddenly showing up, leaving with newborns. But we were told not to ask questions. Ethan's heart raced, and on the night my daughters were born, Angela closed her eyes. Trying to remember it was chaotic. I remember hearing 2 distinct cries from the delivery room, but afterward, there was only one baby in the nursery, and the other Ethan could barely breathe. I saw Isabel carrying a baby out of the maternity ward. She said it was an emergency transfer, but Ethan thanked Angela and dismissed her, his mind reeling from the new information. Every piece of the puzzle he uncovered led back to Evelyn, back in his study. Ethan and Frank continued to unravel the mystery. They found suspicious bank transfers to offshore accounts, all somehow linked to the hospital. "Mr. Parker," Frank called out, his voice tense. "I found something, an old email partially deleted, but I recovered part of it." Ethan leaned in to read, "The Twins project is progressing as planned. Subjects EP and CP were successfully separated. The adoptive family was the rest, was corrupted twins project." Ethan murmured, a chill running down his spine. What on earth is going on at that hospital? As the investigation progressed, it became increasingly clear that Olivia and Lily's case was not an isolated one. There were hints of other separations, other deceased babies who were actually given to adoptive families. But why? What was the purpose of it all? Ethan spent sleepless nights connecting the dots, following the leads. Each new discovery brought him closer to the truth, but also terrified him with its implications. One night, while reviewing the hospital documents for the 100th time, Ethan noticed something he had missed before a small handwritten note in the corner of Olivia's record confirmed with it before preceding it. Isabel Thorne. Ethan felt a surge of rage and betrayal. Evelyn wasn't just a piece of this puzzle, she was one of its architects with trembling hands. He picked up the phone and dialed Frank. "I need you to do one more thing for me," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Find everything you can about Isabel Thorne, her past, her connections, everything, and prepare a warrant to search her apartment." Hanging up, Ethan looked at Emily's photo on his desk. "I'm close, my love," he murmured. "I'll find the truth for you, for our daughters, for all the families who were separated." The sun began to rise, casting its first rays through the study window, a new day, and with it the promise of long-awaited answers. Ethan stood resolute. It was time to confront Evelyn and expose the truth, no matter the cost for Olivia, for Lily, and for Emily's memory. He would see this through. The investigation had reached its tipping point. The pieces of the puzzle were nearly all in place. All that remained was the final confrontation, the confirmation Ethan both feared and knew was necessary. With one last look at the information-covered boards in his office, Ethan left, ready to confront Evelyn and finally unravel the mystery that had shattered so many lives. Massachusetts General Hospital rose imposingly against the overcast sky, its white walls concealing secrets Ethan was determined to unearth. With firm steps and a racing heart, he walked through the glass doors, heading straight for the main reception. "James Parker." "I have a meeting with Dr. Grantham," he announced, his voice carrying an authority that made the receptionist flinch slightly. Minutes later, Ethan was seated across from Dr. Theodore Grantham, the hospital's director. The middle-aged man seemed perfectly composed, but Ethan noted the slight tremor in his hands as he offered him a cup of coffee. "Mr. Parker." "What brings you here?" Grantham asked, his tone falsely cordial. Ethan went straight to the point. "I'm here to talk about the night of December 15th, 5 years ago, the night my daughters were born." Grantham's smile faltered for a moment. "Ah, yes, a tragic night. If I recall, I'm deeply sorry for your loss." "What loss would that be?" Dr. Grantham, Ethan pressed, leaning forward. "Because, you see, I have reason to believe both my daughters are alive." The silence that followed was deafening. Grantham adjusted his tie. "Visibly uncomfortable, Mr. Parker. I don't know what led you to think that, but I assure you the records are clear. Only one of you, your daughters, survived." Ethan placed a folder full of documents on the table. "Records can be altered. Doctor and yours were repeatedly." The next 2 hours were a battle of wills and evidence. Ethan presented the inconsistencies he'd uncovered, the witnesses he'd interviewed with each revelation. Grantham seemed to shrink a little more in his chair. "What happened that night?" Dr. Ethan demanded, his patience worn thin. "I want the truth." Grantham sighed deeply, appearing to age 10 years in an instant. "Mr. Parker, what happened is more complex than you can imagine. Decisions were made, decisions that at the time seemed for the greater good." "Greater good," Ethan nearly shouted. "Separating newborn twins is for the greater good." "It wasn't just about your daughters," Grantham admitted, reluctantly. "There was a study in progress, a study on nature versus nurture. Identical TW raised in drastically different environments." Ethan felt sick to his stomach. "You played with lives as if they were lab rats." Grantham offered no reply, his silence more damning than any words who else was involved. Ethan pressed. I can't name names," Grantham stammered, "but I can tell you that the head nurse that night, Isabel Thorne, knows more than she lets on. Ethan left the hospital with more questions than answers, but with the certainty that he was on the right path. Evelyn was the key to unlocking the entire mystery. Meanwhile, at the Fifth Avenue mansion, Olivia and Lily played in the garden under Evelyn's watchful eye. The girls were building a sandcastle, their hands moving in perfect sync. "You know," Charlotte, Olivia said casually, "it's funny how we both like the same things." Lily nodded, smiling yes, "and how we make the same faces when we're thinking." The two laughed, their identical laughter echoing through the garden. Evelyn, sitting on a bench nearby, felt her heart constrict. Grandma Isabel Lily called. "Look what Emma taught me." The girls performed a dance routine, and Evelyn applauded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that her world was about to come crashing down. "It's incredible how well they get along, isn't it?" Emma commented, looking at Evelyn. Lily nodded slowly. "It's not just how we look alike, it's everything, our tastes, our gestures." She paused, looking directly at Olivia. "Sometimes I feel like you're part of me." Olivia agreed. "I feel that too. Charlotte, like we're sisters." The two girls shared a silent look of understanding. Evelyn, watching them, felt the weight of years of secrets pressing down on her girls. Evelyn called, her voice trembling. "How about we go inside for a snack?" guiding them inside. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to unravel. Her hands shook as she served them sandwiches, nearly dropping the pitcher of juice. "Grandma, are you okay?" Lily asked with concern. "I'm fine, dear." Evelyn forced a smile, just a bit tired, but it wasn't fatigue. It was guilt, pure and crushing, looking at Olivia and Lily, so innocent and happy together. Evelyn felt the weight of her actions more acutely than ever. The sound of the front door opening made Evelyn freeze. Ethan entered the kitchen, his eyes immediately locking onto hers. "Isabel," he said, his voice controlled but charged with emotion, "we need to talk." The girls looked from Ethan to Evelyn, sensing the tension in the air. Evelyn nodded slowly, knowing the moment she had been dreading had finally arrived. Emma Charlotte. Ethan turned to the girls. "Why don't you go play in your room for a while? Isabel and I need to discuss some adult matters." The girls obeyed reluctantly, casting curious glances over their shoulders as they climbed the stairs once they were alone. Ethan faced Evelyn, his eyes filled with determination. "No more lies, Isabel," he said firmly. "I want the whole truth now." Evelyn sank into a chair, looking decades older. Tears began to well in her eyes. "James," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "what I did, what we all did, started with the best of intentions. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't it?" The silence in the Fifth Avenue mansion's living room was heavy, almost tangible. Ethan sat rigidly in his armchair, his knuckles white from gripping the armrests. Evelyn, across from him, looked frail and defeated, tears trembling in her eyes. "Isabel," Ethan began, his voice controlled but filled with a raw emotion. "I spent the last few days digging up lies and half-truths. Now I want to hear it all from you. No omissions, no excuses." Evelyn closed her eyes as if gathering the strength to speak when she opened them again. They were swimming in unshed tears. "James, what happened that night? It wasn't an accident or a medical error. It was a decision, a terrible decision, made by people who thought they were doing the right thing. Ethan felt his stomach clench. What kind of people separate newborn twins? Isabel, what kind of right thing is that? Before Evelyn could answer, the sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. Olivia and Lily appeared at the entrance to the living room, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. Daddy, Olivia asked tentatively. Is everything okay? Ethan forced a smile, trying to mask the suffocating tension. Yes, sweetheart, Isabel and I are just having an adult conversation. Lily took a step forward, her blue eyes, so like Olivia's, fixed on Evelyn Grandma. Why are you crying? Evelyn quickly wiped her tears, but the damage was done. The girls exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them girls. Ethan said gently, Why don't you go play in the garden for a bit? I promise we'll explain everything later. Reluctantly, Olivia and Lily left, but not without casting curious glances back over their shoulders. Once the door closed, Ethan turned back to Evelyn, his patience exhausted. Now Isabel, the truth, all of it. Evelyn took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping under the weight of her secrets. It all started with a study, our study about nature versus nurture. The idea was to separate identical twins at birth and observe their development in drastically different environments. Ethan felt a wave of nausea. You treated them like lab rats. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Evelyn protested weakly. It was meant to be a controlled ethical study, but then things got out of hand as Evelyn spoke. Ethan felt his world collapsing. She described how wealthy, desperate families were approached, how babies were exchanged, records altered, and lives manipulated. And Sarah, Ethan asked, his voice shaking, She found out something, didn't she? Evelyn nodded sadly. Sarah was brilliant, James. She started putting the pieces together, asking questions. She was so close to uncovering it all. Ethan felt his heart clench. Is that why she... No? Evelyn exclaimed, horrified. We never. James, Sarah's death was a terrible accident, but she was under so much pressure, so distressed outside the room. In the hallway, Olivia and Lily were crouched, listening to every word through the slightly ajar door. Their eyes met, filled with confusion and fear. Emma Lily whispered, Do you think we... Olivia squeezed Lily's hand. I always felt like something was missing, and when I met you, it was like that missing part was found. Lily finished back in the living room. Evelyn's confession continued, each word a painful revelation. I was just a nurse, James, but I knew I took part, and when I saw you, so small, so vulnerable, I couldn't bear the idea of giving her to strangers. Ethan stared at her. Incredulous, so you took her for yourself, raised her as your granddaughter. Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was saving her, giving her a chance at a normal life. Normal, Ethan nearly shouted. You separated her from her sister, from her family outside in the hallway. Olivia and Lily hugged, finally understanding the truth. Their hearts already knew we're sisters, Olivia whispered. Twins. Lily nodded, tears in her eyes. We always have been inside. Ethan stood abruptly, walking to the window outside. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the garden. How long had they been talking? Minutes? Hours? What happens now, Isabel? He asked, his voice weary. Evelyn rose shakily. James, I'm ready to face the consequences of my actions, but please think of the girls. They've been through so much already. Before Ethan could respond, the door opened fully. Olivia and Lily entered, hand in hand. Their faces a mixture of determination and vulnerability, Daddy, Olivia said, her voice surprisingly firm. We heard everything. Ethan felt his heart break. He wanted to protect them, to spare them this painful truth, but looking at them now, so united, so strong together, he realized that perhaps they were more resilient than he thought. Charlotte. My sister, isn't she? Olivia continued. My twin Ethan nodded slowly. Yes, sweetheart, she is. Lily looked at Evelyn, her eyes filled with a complex mix of confusion and hurt. Grandma, why Evelyn fell to her knees, sobbing. Oh, Charlotte, my dear, I'm so sorry. The girls approached Evelyn, each placing a hand on her shoulder, a gesture so full of compassion that it made Ethan's heart tighten. "What do we do now, Daddy?" Olivia asked, looking at Ethan with a maturity far beyond her years. Ethan looked at his daughters, at Evelyn, at Emily's portrait on the wall, so many lives affected, so many secrets revealed. And yet there was more to discover, more people involved in this terrible scheme. "Now," he said softly, "we start to fix what was broken together as the last ray of sunlight vanished from the horizon. The Hayes family, now complete, though wounded, shared a hesitant but hopeful embrace. The road ahead would be hard, filled with challenges and painful revelations, but for the first time in years, there was hope. The truth, as painful as it was, had finally come to light, and with it the promise of healing, redemption, and a new beginning for them all." The silence in the Fifth Avenue mansion's living room was nearly deafening. Ethan, Olivia, and Lily sat on the sofa, their hands linked, while Evelyn occupied the armchair opposite. Looking smaller and more fragile than ever, Isabel Ethan began, his voice low but firm. "It's time, no more half-truths, no more secrets. We want to know everything." Evelyn nodded slowly, tears already forming in her tired eyes. She took a deep breath, as if preparing to dive into deep, turbulent waters. "It all started 20 years ago," she began, her voice trembling. "I was a young nurse at St. Mary's, full of dreams and ambitions." As Evelyn spoke, memories flooded her mind, carrying her back to that time. Flashback: the hospital corridor was quiet, the fluorescent lights humming softly. Evelyn, in her pristine white uniform, walked briskly, a stack of medical bills hidden in her purse. "Miss Thorne," a deep voice called. It was Dr. Grantham, the hospital's director. "A moment, please." Evelyn felt her heart plummet. She followed him to his office, expecting the worst. "Isabel," he said, settling behind his imposing desk, "it has come to my attention that you're in financial trouble." She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her debts. "Dr. Grantham, I can explain." He raised a hand, silencing her. "No need. In fact, I have a proposal for you, proposal for one that could solve all your financial problems and more." End of flashback. "That's how it all began," Evelyn said, her voice returning to the present. "Dr. Grantham offered me a large sum of money to participate in a special study at the time. It seemed like a solution to all my problems." Ethan frowned. What kind of study? Evelyn closed her eyes, as if the memory was too painful to revisit it. Was a study on nature versus nurture, separating identical twins at birth and observing their development in drastically different settings. Olivia and Lily gasped in unison, gripping each other's hands tighter. "How could you?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and disbelief at first. "We convinced ourselves it was for the greater good," Evelyn continued, her voice barely a whisper. "We believed the results could revolutionize our understanding of human development." She paused, tears rolling down her cheeks. "But then you girls were born." Flashback: the delivery room was chaotic. Emily Hayes screamed in pain as she gave birth to her daughters. Evelyn was there, her heart torn between her professional duty and the terrible secret she carried. The first cry pierced the air, followed by a second. 2 perfect identical girls. "They're beautiful?" Emily sighed, exhausted but radiant. Evelyn felt her heart clench. She knew what she had to do, but in that moment, looking at those 2 innocent lives, the entire logic of the study crumbled. And a flashback. "I couldn't bear the idea of separating them," Evelyn continued, her voice choked with emotion. "But Dr. Grantham insisted. He said it was too late to back out." Ethan stood abruptly, walking to the window, his mind reeling from these revelations. "So you decided to keep Charlotte?" Evelyn nodded, sadly. I thought I could protect her, give her a good life away from all this." Lily, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "But what about our mother? Did she know?" Evelyn's expression twisted into a mask of pain. "Sarah, she began to suspect she was brilliant. You know, she started putting together the pieces, doing research." Ethan turned sharply. "That's why she—" "No," Evelyn exclaimed, horrified. "We never. James Sarah's death was a horrible accident, but she was so close to the truth." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with unspoken emotions and shocking revelations. Olivia, who had been quiet, absorbing everything, finally spoke so. "All this time I had a sister and didn't know you were always sisters," Ethan added softly, sitting beside the girls again. "Twins separated by a terrible conspiracy." Evelyn sobbed openly. "Now, I'm so sorry. If I could go back, but you can't," Ethan said firmly. "What's done is done. The question now is, what do we do?" Moving forward, the girls looked at each other, communicating silently. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lily stood and walked to Evelyn Grandma. She said softly, "What you did was wrong, very wrong, but you took care of me. You loved me." Evelyn stared at Lily, her eyes wide, scarcely believing what she was hearing. Olivia joined her sister. "It won't be easy, but maybe we can try to understand, try to forgive." Ethan watched the scene, a mixture of pride and pain welling up inside him. His daughters, separated for so long, now united in compassion. "Isabel," he said, his voice calmer now, "what you did is unforgivable, but because of these girls, because of the love Sarah had for them, we're willing to listen to, try to understand." Evelyn nodded, tears flowing freely. "I'll tell you everything, every detail, every name. I'll do whatever it takes to fix what I can." As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, the Hayes family, now complete, though wounded, formed a hesitant, hopeful embrace. The truth, as painful as it was, had finally emerged. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal and emotional challenges. But for the first time in years, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, a chance to rebuild what was broken and perhaps create something even stronger. The next morning dawned gray and cold, reflecting the emotional climate inside the Fifth Avenue mansion. Ethan hadn't slept, spending the night in his study, surrounded by photos of Emily and hospital documents. His eyes were red and swollen, a mix of exhaustion and suppressed tears in Olivia's room. The twins slept curled up together, as if afraid of being separated again. Evelyn sat stiffly in the living room, seemingly not having moved at all. When everyone finally gathered for breakfast, a heavy silence reigned. Ethan stared into his untouched coffee cup, his thoughts a storm of conflicting emotions. Dad Olivia's soft voice brought him back to reality. "Are you okay?" Ethan forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm processing," sweetheart Lily, seated beside Olivia, hesitated before speaking. What happens now?" The question hung in the air, heavy and urgent. Ethan finally raised his eyes, meeting Evelyn's gaze. "That depends," he said, his voice controlled but emotional. "Isabel, you said you'd tell us everything. We're ready to hear it." Evelyn nodded slowly, placing her trembling cup on the table. "Where should I start? From the beginning," Ethan replied firmly. "I want every detail, every person involved." As Evelyn spoke, detailing the elaborate scheme of separated twins, Ethan's anger grew. Doctors, nurses, even administrative staff had all played a part in the conspiracy. "What about Sarah?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking slightly. "Did she suspect something?" Evelyn closed her eyes, pain evident on her face. "Sarah was brilliant, James. She started piecing it together, asking questions in the last months before the accident. She was so close to the truth." Ethan felt a wave of nausea. "So her death, it was a terrible accident," Evelyn insisted, tears in her eyes. But the pressure, the anguish she felt, it didn't help. The twins listened in silence, their hands linked under the table. Olivia spoke first. "So all this time I had a sister and didn't know." Lily nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "And I always felt something missing, like a part of me was somewhere else." Ethan observed his daughters, feeling a mixture of overwhelming love and deep sadness. They had been robbed of 5 years together, of shared memories, of a bond that should have been unbreakable from birth. "Isabel," he said, turning to the older woman, who now looked so small and frail, "I understand you cared for Charlotte, that you loved her, but how could you live with this secret for so long?" Evelyn sobbed openly at first. I convinced myself I was protecting Charlotte, giving her a better life. But as the years passed, the guilt became unbearable. Ethan fought the urge to shout, to demand immediate justice, but looking at his daughters, seeing the compassion in their eyes, he forced himself to breathe deeply. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice softer. "How do we move forward?" Olivia and Lily looked at each other, communicating silently again. "We want to stay together," Olivia said firmly. "We never want to be separated again." Lily nodded vigorously. "We've already lost so much time." Ethan felt his heart tighten. "Of course you'll stay together. I'll never let anyone separate you again." Evelyn raised her eyes, hesitant. "And what about me, Kaus? I understand if you want me to leave to never see me again." "Surprising everyone," Lily replied. "Grandma, what you did was terrible, but you cared for me, loved me. I can't just erase that." Olivia agreed. "It will take time, a lot of time to process this, to forgive. But maybe we can try." Ethan looked at his daughters with a mixture of pride and admiration. Their capacity for compassion, even in the face of such betrayal, was inspiring. "Isabel," he said at last, "what you did is unforgivable, but for the sake of these girls, for Sarah's love, we're willing to try to understand, to try to forgive, but it will be a long, difficult process." Evelyn nodded, tears streaming freely. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll testify against everyone involved, help in any investigation, anything to try and fix what I've done." Ethan stood up, walking to the window outside. The sky was starting to clear, the clouds slowly dissipating. It was as if nature mirrored the changing atmosphere inside the house. "We'll take it step by step," he said, turning back to his newly reunited family. "First, we need to sort out Charlotte's legal status. She's a Parker, and that needs to be official." The twins smiled at each other, the idea of being officially recognized as sisters bringing a spark to their eyes. Then Ethan continued, "We deal with the hospital, with everyone involved in this terrible scheme. They must be held accountable." Evelyn nodded gravely. "I'll help in any way I can. It's the least I can do." Ethan looked at each face in the room, his daughters, so alike, yet so unique. Evelyn carrying the weight of years of guilt, and Emily's portrait on the wall, smiling as if approving of the path they were taking. "It won't be easy," he said softly. "There will be hard days ahead, but we'll face them together." As a family, Olivia and Lily stood, wrapping their arms around their father in a tight embrace. Evelyn watched from a distance, regret and hope mingling in her eyes. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. There would be moments of anger, pain, and doubt. But there would also be moments of joy, discovery, and renewed love. The truth, as painful as it was, had finally emerged, and with it the promise of a new beginning, a chance to rebuild what had been broken and maybe create something even stronger from the fragments as the Hayes family embraced, reunited after years of separation and secrets. The sun finally broke through the clouds, casting a golden ray of light through the window. It was a new day, a new chapter, and together they were ready to face it in the Fifth Avenue Mansion's living room, once the stage for so many painful revelations. Christmas decorations now adorned the space. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air, mingling with a palpable sense of anticipation. Ethan Hayes stood by the fireplace, watching the dancing flames while he waited for the last of his guests to arrive. Olivia and Lily, dressed in identical velvet dresses, whispered excitedly on the sofa, their hands intertwined as if to reassure themselves this was all real. The doorbell chimed. Evelyn, who had been nervously adjusting ornaments on the massive tree, froze. Ethan gave her a reassuring look. Before going to answer the door, Robert Ethan greeted, extending a hand to Lily's adoptive father. "Welcome, please come in." Michael, still visibly shaken by the recent revelations, entered hesitantly, his eyes immediately finding Lily, who ran to hug him. "Daddy!" she exclaimed, burying her face in his chest. Michael held her tightly, tears welling in his eyes. My little girl Olivia watched, a mix of curiosity and apprehension on her face. Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, sweetheart," he murmured. "He's your family too now." Once everyone was settled, Ethan cleared his throat to get their attention. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice charged with emotion. "I know the last few weeks have been challenging to say the least, but we're here today to discuss the future. Olivia and Lily's future." The girls sat up straighter, their faces a mixture of anxiety and hope. After much thought and discussion, Ethan continued, exchanging glances with Michael and Evelyn. "We've reached a decision one we believe is best for the girls." Michael leaned forward, his voice rough. "And what decision is that?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We will share custody. Olivia and Lily will live mainly here at the mansion, but we'll spend regular time with you, Robert and Isabel." He turned to the older woman. "You will continue to be part of their lives if you wish." Evelyn let out a sob of relief. "Thank you, James. Thank you." Lily looked at Michael, worry in her eyes. "Daddy, do you agree with this?" Michael managed a sad smile. "My dear, all I want is your happiness, and I know your happiness is with your sister Olivia, who had been quiet until now. Finally spoke. Can we really stay together forever?" Ethan knelt before the girls, taking their hands in his. "Yes, my darlings, you will never be separated again." I promise. The twins hugged each other, tears of joy streaming down their faces. The scene moved everyone, reminding them of the true meaning of family. Now Ethan said, standing up, "How about we celebrate this new beginning after all it's Christmas?" The hours that followed were filled with joy and reconciliation. The mansion echoed with laughter and lively conversation. Olivia and Lily ran around, showing each other their favorite toys and making plans for the future when it was time to exchange gifts. Ethan asked for a moment of silence. "Emma Charlotte," he said, handing each a small velvet box. "These are special gifts, something to symbolize your connection." The girls opened the boxes simultaneously, revealing two identical heart-shaped pendants. When placed together, they formed a single, complete heart. "Oh, Daddy!" Olivia exclaimed, tears in her eyes. "It's beautiful, it is," Lily whispered, admiring her pendant. Ethan helped them put on their necklaces, the cool metal against their skin, a tangible reminder of their unbreakable bond. Evelyn approached timidly, holding two packages. Sir, I also have something for you." Inside the packages, the girls found photo albums. Olivia's album was filled with pictures of Lily growing up, while Lily's contained photos of Olivia, so you can know the years you lost. Evelyn explained softly. The twins hugged Evelyn, murmuring heartfelt thanks. Ethan watched, feeling a complex mix of emotions. The road to forgiveness would be long, but this was a good start when everyone had gathered around the tree. Ethan cleared his throat again. "I'd like to say a few words," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "This year taught us so much about family forgiveness and new beginnings. We've learned that the bonds that unite us are stronger than any secret or separation." He looked at Olivia and Lily, his heart overflowing with love. "My dear daughters, you are living proof that love overcomes all adversity. Your ability to forgive, to love unconditionally, inspires us all." Turning to Michael and Evelyn, he continued, "And to you, thank you. Thank you for caring for Charlotte, for loving her as your own. Our family may not be conventional, but it's ours, and together we'll give our girls all the love and support they deserve." Silent tears ran down everyone's cheeks. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice quavering with emotion. I want to express my deepest gratitude," she began. "For your forgiveness, for the chance to be part of this family. I promise to dedicate every remaining day of my life to making amends, to supporting these wonderful girls." Olivia and Lily stood, pulling everyone into a group hug for a moment. All past hurts and resentments faded, replaced by a sense of unity and hope. Later, while the adults talked in the living room, Olivia and Lily slipped away to the garden. Snow fell gently, transforming the world into a fairy tale landscape. "What do you think the future holds for us?" Lily asked, her breath forming tiny clouds in the cold air. Olivia smiled, squeezing her sister's hand. "I don't know for sure, but I know we'll face it together. Always inside the house. Ethan watched his daughters playing in the snow. Evelyn and Michael joined him at the window, each lost in their own thoughts. "They're incredible, aren't they?" Michael murmured. Ethan nodded. "They are, and they deserve the best we can give them." Evelyn wiped away a tear. "We'll make it work for them," as they watched the twins build a snowman, laughing and playing as if they had never been apart. Everyone felt a surge of hope. The path ahead would not be easy, but with love, understanding, and commitment, they would face every challenge together. The snow continued to fall, covering the garden with a pristine white blanket. It was as if the universe were offering them all a fresh, blank page. A chance to rewrite their story. Olivia and Lily, hand in hand, looked up at the window, waving happily to their reunited family. Their identical smiles, filled with love and promise, were a living testament that even in the darkest of times, the light of love and truth will always find a way. And so, under the winter sky, the expanded Hayes family, wounded but healing, welcomed a new chapter into their lives, a chapter of unity, forgiveness, and above all, unconditional love. The future, once uncertain and bleak, now shone with possibility. Olivia and Lily would grow up together, supported by a network of love that transcended bloodlines and convention, and together they would learn that true family is the one you choose to build, to nurture, and to love, no matter what life throws your way. As the night sky twinkled with distant stars, the laughter of the reunited family echoed softly through the halls of the mansion. The promise of a new beginning, sealed by hope and love, would guide them forward, and in the quiet hush of the falling snow, their story began anew.